Happy beautiful day. Today's podcast is going to be a little bit different. It's actually going to be all about me and my journey in health. And I was asked this from a friend to do this because with the podcast, I want to share with you what am I trying to achieve with the podcast and why am I trying to achieve? Why am I trying to get all this information to you? And it's to help you.
How did you get into fitness?
I started taking my fitness probably a little bit more seriously when I turned 20. I'd played rugby since I was 13 years old in grade 9 and high school was just finishing, and I started playing for my club. And all the guys that were older than me were all lifting weights. And two of my friends were members of the Ottawa Athletic Club, and I started actually working there. At that point, I started working out and lifting weights. My fitness journey actually started pretty late. I'd never lifted weights until probably that age. And I was actually pretty scared to go to the gym because all the guys that I hung out with were all pretty jacked. It was kind of just started in my basement. I just said, you know what? Before I go to the gym, I'm going to start just getting some dumbbells in my basement and lifting. And then from there, I started working out the OAC. And then after that, I purchased my health food store at 23. And then I got a little bit more serious from there. It didn't get really serious until probably I met my first mentor, Charles Poliquin. I was probably about 24, 25. And at that point, I wasn't in school to become a nutritionist. And he had said that I should probably do something with my life and go back to school because he said you have a natural knack in this industry. So he goes, go do something with yourself. So at that point, I went back at 26 to become a holistic nutritionist. And then after that, once I was done kids, I really took it to the next level. From 26 to about 35, I kind of yo-yo dieted, did all the every fad diet you could do. But then at 35, 36, when I changed companies and I shut down my health food store and became a nutritional consultant full-time, that's when I really took it seriously and made the big shift in my eating, in my exercise, in my sleep, and just overall looking at my health from a different perspective.
From mid-20s to mid-30s, you're inconsistent and yo-yo dieting. What were the mistakes that you were making back then that you realize now?
You know, the biggest mistakes I was making was I was just doing diets. And I think that diets have a really good place in programming, but when you're trying to just diet and you don't have a lot of education and you're just jumping program to program, that was probably the biggest mistake. I wasn't consistent and I jumped program to program. I would either be no carb or I'd be binge eating. After having two kids, so about 35 years old, and me and my wife kind of just were talking and I said, you know what, I'm just changing my perspective and I'm just going to eat healthy. Like I'm just going to eat real food and I'm just going to start from there. That was probably the biggest mistake, was inconsistency. Number two is worrying about what other people thought. I loved to party. I loved going out and I loved having drinks with everybody and going about having great times. And so I would always just try to, if someone said, oh, here's a beer, I'm like, no, it's all good. I don't want to drink. And the next thing you know, I would be having tons of drinks, fired up, ready to go for the night. And then I would just eat garbage for the next day. And then I'd say, oh, I'll just start again on Monday. And so that's kind of where I was. So I was a little bit too embarrassed to really start my journey. And then number three is I kind of didn't know where to start, right? And that's why when I work with clients, I take my 10 years of up and down yo-yo-ness and I just kind of say, here's how we need to shift a couple of things. I just didn't know. I thought it was just all about getting lean. I didn't realize that. I didn't look into food sensitivities. I wasn't worried about sleep quality. I wasn't worried about food quality. I was just worried about how do I lose weight? How do I get lean? And it was probably 1 year that I went like 2 months with no carbs and I went and got my body fat tested. I got a body fat tested every 2 weeks and my body fat actually went up. And then that's when I realized I'm like, hey, there's something wrong here. And then I went and did a food sensitivity test. The three mistakes I did was inconsistent yo-yo dieting. Number two is just giving in every weekend to what other people were doing. I would just kind of go along with the pack. And number three was lack of education.
Are you in the best shape you are now?
Yeah, probably pound for pound in terms of strength to weight ratio in regards to the way that I feel, my energy levels, my body fat, my blood work, my conditioning. In the past 2 or 3 years has been the best. I mean, there's been some waves where I'm focusing on different areas of my health, but I would say overall in the past 2 to 3 years, now I'm 44, I would say probably for where the way I feel in general, I mean, I do feel older and there's things that I feel, but in general, pound for pound, I'm probably in the best shape of my life.
And what was the heaviest you ever were?
Well, the heaviest I ever weighed in my life was 218. And right now I walk around at about 180. And I think that was 215 when I started dating my wife, I was probably about 215, and then every couple of years I lost weight. So I think at our wedding, I was a size 40 pant, and today I wear about a 32 pant, depending on the brand.
Coming from an Indian background, how much does Indian cuisine affect your diet? Because like when you're going to like family events, Indian events and stuff like that, they're well known for their food. So how do you incorporate that and try to stay on track with your diet while having the Indian background?
Well, I think one of the big things that I learned about having Indian background was there's a couple things I struggled with. Number one is satiety. It's something that we're taught that we eat until we're full. When we go to someone's house, we're taught that we should eat everything and be full and be out of there and want to take a nap. So that was probably one of the hardest things, because I still struggle with that. Is I don't know when I'm full or not, because I've always been a person that when you go to someone's house, you're supposed to feel full and tired after. That's one thing. Number two is when it comes to Indian cuisine, I also had to change the Indian foods that I eat. I don't eat roti anymore, and I don't eat all the creams. I eat a lot of like lean meats, and I'll eat a lot of vegetables, and I'll eat the rice, but I will stay away from those heavier meals. There had to be a shift in my food choices that I made, but those are the two things that I've struggled with from a child to now, because those are things that we've been taught is eat to the point where you feel like you're going to puke when you go to someone's house, because that's the culture of eating. And, you know, I can remember my grandmother putting food on my hand because I said no more, and she's like, no, you got to eat one more. And I just remember that. And I think that I talk about that with a lot of my clients who are brought up in that kind of value system around food and culture and being around and eating to the point where we feel sick. I struggled with that, but I didn't struggle too much with making the shifts in the food choices that I was making, because I believe every type of cuisine has healthy food options for you to actually achieve your goal. It's just changing your mindset to what you can eat towards your goal and what you'd want to limit the intake of. And then I just stay away from some of the foods.
Why do you want to help people so much?
Well, I think it's going through my own struggles. There's a couple turning points. Number one would be that when my daughter was born, she had a lot of skin issues. What happened is we went through all different types of medical systems to figure out what was going on with her skin. And at that point, we were kind of not getting the answers that we were needing, because we still had problems. And so at that point, we went and saw a naturopath, and we did a food sensitivity test on her. And it turned out that she was sensitive to eggs and soya protein. And at that point, I was in school for nutrition. I was probably eating 12 eggs a day. And I'm like, there's no way that these foods are unhealthy. And then when we actually cut them out, her skin got better. She used to have to wear mitts because she would scratch herself till she bleeds, and she would look like a fire burn victim. And then I said, okay, this really worked. I'm like, this is insane. And so then I went and got it done, and we found out my sensitivities. I cut them out, and I said, I feel amazing. And so at that point, I said, I was just finishing up school for nutrition. I said, I think we're making all these programs wrong, because we're not looking at the individual. We're just looking at generic meal plans, giving them to people and saying, here you go. So that was probably the biggest turning point, is understanding that each food has a different effect in each person's body, right? So that'd probably be the number one thing. And then number two is just all the diets and all the things that I went through. It took me 10 to 12 years to be able to figure out what worked. The reason why I want to help people is because it was a frustrating journey, but I enjoy the process and trying new things and trying different things. But there's so many people that I meet that are doing all these different types of programs and all these crazy things that I say there's just ways that we can do it once we find out more about you. The reason why I want to share all my experiences with people is because it shouldn't take 12 years to figure out how to maneuver your body, to feed it, to make it work out, to get the best out of it. And it's just being able to share that information with you, so that way you guys don't have to go through 12 years of ups and downs. In my experience, I probably can get people to do that within 2 years.
You're a business owner, you're a dad, you know a lot about nutrition. Obviously, you're pretty active. How do you balance all these things?
I wouldn't probably say I'm the best person to say balance. I just enjoy it. I think that I'm a terrible sleeper, and I tell all my clients I probably sleep about 5 to 6 hours a night, sometimes less. I like what I do, and I know it sounds cheesy, but I enjoy working with people. I enjoy being around people. I enjoy working out. I enjoy good food. I enjoy being in the kitchen. I don't mind going for walks. It's one of the things that changed my relationship with my wife, because every morning we go for a walk together and talk about our day, and we're outside in nature. It's amazing. I mean, I think that I live a pretty simple life in terms of I know what what I like and I know what I don't like. When it comes to balance, I'm okay saying no to certain things now as I get older because it doesn't add to my day. It takes away from the things that I really do enjoy. And I've just figured those things out through journaling. I've had lots of coaches. I've probably had a coach for business, and I have a spiritual coach, and I have a strength coach. So just talking to them, journaling, learning who I am has really helped me understand how to create balance throughout my day. But I probably wouldn't say I'm a balanced person. Most people would probably think I'm not a balanced person, but I only like 3 to 4 things, and I really just buckle down on those 4 things.
As a 44-year-old, what are some ways that you stay active now?
The way that I stay active now is I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu about 3 to 5 times per week. I walk every day, and I work out 3 to 4 times per week. So for me to stay active, those are the things that I do. And tips that I just do for myself is I park my car always as far as I can. You'll probably see me at the mall. I park far. At my house, I park on the street, so I always get some extra steps. I have a gym at my house, so that's helped me get workouts in more consistently. And then I got into a sport that I enjoy. And I think that finding an activity or a hobby that you enjoy keeps you motivated. And just by doing that sport keeps me more accountable to my stretching, to my lifting, so that I can improve at that sport. So for me to keep active, I'm pretty much not a big sitter. If you ask my wife, she would tell you that when she met me, she thinks it's hilarious when she thinks that I sit in the office for 10 hours a day some days, because when she first met me, I couldn't sit still for more than half an hour, and I still can't. For me to stay active, it's just, I found a sport that I enjoy. I enjoy walking, I enjoy lifting weights, and I enjoy just being able to do what I want, so I try to take care of my body more for that reason.
How many steps do you think you get a day?
My steps probably on average are probably about 10 to 12,000 in the summer, and in the winter it's probably 9 to 11 in that range. But in general, I will always take a 10 to 30 minute walk per day. That's guaranteed. That's like my biggest thing that I enjoy. I learned that probably about 38. One of my clients said, hey, you know, Harry, you should walk a little bit more. It's really good for like mood, anxiety. And at that point, I was just starting the second company. I was just in the middle of it. I was going through the growing pains, and he's like, just start walking. And I started doing it once or twice a week. And then one day I started doing it every day for a couple of weeks for some reason. And then I missed it. And my wife's like, what's wrong with you? You're really edgy today. I'm like, I don't know. And I'm like, I didn't go for a walk today. And at that point, that's when I started doing that activity style.
Not so much on the physical side of being active, but like how else do you take care of yourself that's not involving being active?
I will try to do an infrared sauna. So I think I've had an infrared sauna at my house for about 10 years. I do that. I do believe in stretching. I will sit on the floor. I will have a massage gun. I like doing that. Number 3 is I like food. Right? I don't mind getting in the kitchen and trying different recipes, cooking food to help me kind of feel better and to make sure my body has the nourishment that it needs to accomplish my day. And then I always make sure that I drink tons of water. I drink probably about 3 to 4 liters of water a day. I start off with probably about 2 liters of water per day, every day. And I will do red light therapy as well. So red light therapy is something new that I just brought into my regime. And I think it's been one of the best tools. And I track my sleep just to kind of get an idea of what's going on with my body, how did I recover, how are my workouts going, and kind of just jot things back and forth in my head, being like, okay, this is what happened today, this is how I'm going to feel. Kind of going through my foundation that I go through in my office with my clients. Eat right, move right, poop right, sleep right, love right, drink right, talk right. I try to just kind of every quarter go through all of those foundational items, and I just kind of say, what do I want to work on this month? And I don't focus on one thing every quarter. One quarter might be all about sleep. One quarter might be all about recovery, healing, and yoga. One quarter might be all about like spiritual and journaling, and one quarter might be all about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. One quarter might be all about reading more about different topics around health. I'm always kind of looking into different types of chapters with my health. I'm not just focusing on leaning out. Like when people talk about health, they just say, oh, I got to lose weight. Well, no, there's a lot of different departments of your health, and I've just kind of done 4-month or yearly focuses on those one departments.
What are some things you do daily for your mental health?
I walk every day. I eat really good food. So when I got my food sensitivity test done, we found out I had some major food sensitivities to things like eggs and bananas, oats, pork. So I really don't eat those foods anymore at all, because every time I've tried to reincorporate them in, I've always felt worse. I really protect my digestive system because it will protect my day in terms of energy. I will always go for a walk every day. I like being outside in nature, even if it's minus 40. I take pictures and send them to some of my friends and like, you're crazy. I love it. It's refreshing. I will meal, and then I journal. I don't journal all the time, but I do journal probably about 6 months of the year. And that's something that I only kind of started doing for the past year. It's not something that I've been, or probably 2 years. I can remember my coach at 25 saying that it was really good for lowering cortisol and improving sleep quality. And I just remember saying, like, I would never do that. Give me a break. And then now, as I started to read Joe Dispenza's book, I started just journaling and just making notes for myself. And one of my business coaches said he made me journal for about 60 days. And then he said, go back and read it and look at the things that you complained about in your journal. And it was probably like 3 things. And all of those 3 things, when I told my coach that, he's like, we can change all of those because you have the power with your business and your skills to be able to change those. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. That's probably one of the biggest game changers I've done.
What does this mean to you, bringing your best daily?
Bringing your best daily means that it's just who I am. No day is going to be perfect. You're never going to you can't feel great all the time. Like, I don't feel great all the time. Some days getting up and going for my workouts. There's some days where I'm tired. There's some days where there's 52 things coming at me. But I just always say to myself, just bring the best you can at this moment. And that's all you got. And I think that the reason why I keep saying that to myself is because there's never going to be an ideal time or scenario for anything. I just say, okay, I'm in this moment. What can I do that's the best? So even when it comes to food, if I, let's say we're driving to Toronto and I brought my food and I ate it all and I'm still hungry and we pull over to the gas station, I say, okay, what can I do that's the best for me? It's just a way for me to catch myself to not quit, because quitting is easy. But if you just say to yourself, well, this is my scenario and this is the best I can do, I've thought about it. I always say that people who say to me, I'm all in or all out person, I always say, well, you were never in, right? Sometimes I go late to events, but you know what? I showed up. Or sometimes I eat a meal and it's not the best thing. It's not the perfect thing, but it was the best in that scenario. I think that if we just kept that mentality up, it gives you better momentum into everything. You're just feeling like you're just giving your best. But to quit and say, I'm going to restart tomorrow, well, that's a 50-50 shot of you redoing it. And then the next thing you know, for a week, everything's just spiraled downwards and they're trying to get back on track and it just never happens. And a year later, you're still stuck in the same position.
Who are some people online that inspire you or like get you motivated?
I don't really have like a whole bunch of people that I really follow. I just kind of have people in my life that I look up to. My business coach, my strength coach, my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu teammates and coaches, they all provide some type of, I wouldn't say inspiration, but anecdotes of how to live. And I think that they remind me of the basics. When it comes to people who I look up to, I have a quadrant of 4 things that I look up to. So it's finance, faith, fitness, and family. In general, my quadrant, when it comes to inspiration and people I look up to, it could be everybody, right? Because I have these 4 quadrants that I always pay attention to when I'm talking to somebody. Is this person have good fitness? Do they have good family? Do they have faith? And do they have good finances? Anybody that I generally sit with, I always tell all my clients, they're more of an inspiration than anybody because they're making change. Everybody inspires me because I get to interview people for a living and they tell me their crazy stories of things that they've done in their life. So luckily for me, I'm around inspiring people every day because they're just trying to make their day better. It's kind of the cheesy answer, but I mean, I follow people who have good messages, who are inspirational quotes, but I don't really look up to somebody unless they have those 4 quadrants. But in general, I just learn from each person and understand that everybody has an inspiring story.
The most famous question, what are your 3 non-negotiables every day?
My 3 non-negotiables every day are probably very simple. Number 1, I have to go outside and go for a walk. I will skip lifting weights anytime if I have a tight schedule that day, and I'll go for a walk. I've even been known to go for walks at like 11, midnight, 1 a.m. No problem. I'll go for a walk every day. Number 2 is I will never start the day without cold ice water. And it has to be ice water. I know people will say, oh, that's not healthy. Well, guess what? I drink a ton of it. So every day I will probably drink, in the first hour of waking up, I'll probably drink 1 hour to 2 liters of water a day. And then the third thing is I probably will make sure that I have protein at every meal, every day. Every meal will have some sort of protein on it. Those are probably the 3 non-negotiables that I do on a daily basis.
If you had like a billboard that you can put up in the city with like a quick quote or sentence, what would it be?
Probably bring your best daily and be your own hero. I think that a lot of us are looking for external influencers to help us, and I think they're great because they can give us that quote or they can give us that inspiration for the moment, but you have to be connected to who are you. And I think the more you learn about yourself, the better it is. And that's why I always say bring your best daily and I always say that to myself, just be your own hero for the day, because you see the hero's journey that everybody goes through, like Luke Skywalker. That's probably like the biggest hero's journey. And I realized that I'm going through my own hero's journey through going through my ups and downs downs, learning more about who am I, what am I good at, what am I not good at, and I'm still just figuring it out, right? I'm no different than anybody else, and so I'm just trying to figure out my own hero's journey.
What are your final thoughts on this?
Final thoughts are that health doesn't need to be complicated, and it just needs to be a part of your day. And I meet a lot of people and I see them doing all these wild things, but yet they forget the basics. And I think that a lot of people think that the fancy thing is going to be the thing that saves their life, but really it's consistency, doing it every day. Even on a good day, bad day, you just have to do it. And the good thing is everybody does that. Everybody does that, right? Good day, bad day, they're going to work. Good day, bad day, they stay married. Good day, bad day, they're still taking care of their kids. So you already have that natural energy to be able to fight through it. And if you just take that and move that towards your health and say, hey, today's a bad day. Oh, I don't have time to go for a walk. I'm just going to eat chips. Don't do that. Go for the walk. Eat good food. Then maybe have some chips. But you can just make it easy. Do the basics every day. Pick 3 to 5 things. Do them for a month. Then pick another 3 to 5 things. Add them to your month and just grow into it. And that will probably get you the best results, and give it more time, give it a year to be able to see big changes. Thank you very much for listening to that podcast. That was me and Frank. Frank is our media guy, and we've had some requests to kind of get to learn more about me. So I hope you learned a little bit more about me. I was kind of uncomfortable with this podcast because it's me, and I always say it's not about me, it's about the guest or it's about you. But you know what? It's actually great to share my story and let you guys know that it's time, and I'm no different than any one of you. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. So I really hope you enjoyed this podcast. And if you like this podcast, please like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. And I hope you enjoyed it and have a beautiful day.